So, welcome to the panel discussion, which is entitled From Wary Competitors to Keen Collaborators. We've thought long and hard about this format because panel discussions are usually fairly dull. I think you'll, when somebody asks a question and then every member of the panel tries to think of something new to say. So we've abolished that, and instead we've got 5 people here who have all got some experience and are passionate about collaboration. And I'm going to ask each of them to share that passion with us for 4 or 5 minutes, probably 4 minutes at the, given the fact we're starting a couple of minutes late. I just want them to explain to us all what their collaboration project is, why they're so excited by it, why they're so passionate about it. And I've asked each of them to leave us with 2 things. One is, what's the big idea? What's the big principle that underpins that example that they're giving of collaboration? And this is the bit where you come in. I've asked them to challenge us all with one big question that arises from their example. So to challenge the rest of us to see how we could join in with it. And after each of them do that, I'm going to invite you in your tables or probably in pairs just to have a couple of minutes of reflection on the question that they've just set us. I might take a couple of contributions and then we'll move on to the next person. So I just want this to be 5 provocations to more collaboration. So I'm going to start by asking Michael Adams to kick us off.
Kia ora, I'm Michael Adams. I'm the Director of Marketing, Communications and Innovation for Auckland Theatre Company. I had lots of various kind of collaborations that I could have talked about, and but there was one that was exciting me the most, and it in fact wasn't with another arts company, but I wanted to talk about it because I think it reveals some quite important principles. So if you don't know, Auckland Theatre Company is building a new theatre on the waterfront in Auckland, the ASB Waterfront Theatre. It's a contentious area of land in Auckland, and it's highly competed for, and it's a challenging area because there's a lot of industries down there working in that space from us. There's hospitality, there's accommodation providers, there's an enormous marine sector and industry down there, and then there's also Fonterra in New Zealand, Vodafone, Microsoft. There's lots and lots of competing companies for a small area of space. It's also an area which is really tightly controlled by the unitary plan about how many cars at peak time are allowed through 4 intersections, and if that volume is breached, all development in the Wynyard Quarter has to stop. So there's an organisation which has come about and been created called the Wynyard Quarter Transport Management Association, which may sound incredibly dull, but it's actually an extraordinary kind of organisation to be on. So I represent not only Auckland Theatre Company, I represent entertainment and events for the Wynyard Quarter, so everything that's happening in Silo Park or the Viaduct Event Centre as well as the F&B providers down there. And what's interesting, and why I think this is, why I'm passionate and inspired by this as a collaboration, is that we have come into that area and quite unexpectedly communicated with those other industries and become an essential part of that area. It's raised the esteem and the regard with which Auckland Theatre Company is held, in which the theatre that we're building is and its role that it's going to be playing in the Wynyard Quarter, both of bringing people in, but also what we can add to and what value we can bring to the Wynyard Quarter as a whole. So it's, and the kinds of things that really surprised me in this, for instance, we got a couple of the marine business owners bought seats in the theatre. They don't see themselves and haven't been theatre goers, but suddenly they've become donors to Auckland Theatre Company because they suddenly believe and understand and have started to hold us in a higher regard and have esteem for us. And they are really excited about the fact that we're going to offer deals, whether it's for those people to use our space or just deals on our ticket prices or our F&B offers and so on. And what is important from that regard, in terms of growing the pie for arts sector, in terms of the number of people coming to us, sometimes we could collaborate with other arts organisations, but actually maybe we'll unlock other much larger audiences by finding ways to collaborate with other industries and businesses that we would never have thought would actually be an area of a group of audiences in there. It also uncovers some really quite remarkable and extraordinary things that show the civic pride that exists for an arts company. There are people in there who that I've met via the Transport Management Association who we've discovered have been taking photographs of our building every single day as it's been built because they think this is an amazing thing for the Wynyard Quarter, and they're really, really excited about this, and they're really excited about being able to show us all of those photos. And we've used them, and we're starting to share them, and we're going to put them on our screens to show how the Wynyard Quarter has developed as a whole. And again, we wouldn't have discovered those things had we not had a collaborative attitude towards the other industries and businesses that we had to work on and work with. And so so the big idea that I had was that we are essential and we are held in really, really high esteem, but sometimes we need to kind of partner up with other organisations for that to become a real part of a community, and for it to become a real thing and not just an idea possibly that we might hold. So my challenge was, are there challenges or problems or competition that exists, or do you have competitors in a space that exists where you are, where you could collaborate with some other businesses or industries in that area to collectively solve a problem and achieve something which is greater than the sum of your two parts, and which for us, in the Wynyard Quarter, has resulted in some quite a growth in the esteem for Auckland Theatre Company, but it's also resulted in teeny-weeny changes that you wouldn't necessarily think were crucial. We've got rid of a type of parking permit for the Wynyard Quarter, which both us and the marine industry hated. It was for people who had essential services permits, and they can park all day for free. But all that happened was that people who weren't working or coming to the Wynyard Quarter for any kind of business purpose would just kind of park the van and disappear for the day, which meant that any of our customers had nowhere to park. It resulted in a collective lobbying approach to Auckland Transport, which is resulting in new public transport routes and links coming into the Wynyard Quarter, and it's changed the charging rates or the parking charge rates in our area. So we would never probably be able to achieve that kind of a change if we were just Auckland Theatre Company approaching Auckland Transport, and potentially the marine industry wouldn't either. But when it's both Auckland Theatre Company and the marine industry and Fonterra and Air New Zealand collectively speaking under this title, the Wynyard Quarter Traffic Management Association, we can achieve that change.
So can I just clarify, what is the question?
The question is, sorry, is there a challenge in your community where you could collaborate with a competitor to come up with a solution that is greater than the sum of what you could achieve as independents?
So I'm going to ask you to talk to the person next to you, maybe it's in twos or threes if you're on an awkward number, and have 2 minutes to think about the answer to that question. Scribble some things down. I'm going to ask a couple of you to share them with us in a minute, but I'd just like you to reflect on that for 2 minutes. Okay, so there's your 2 minutes up. Has anybody got an example that they'd like to very quickly just share with us from that conversation? Please. You have to shout.
Yeah. So we've just had a situation as first step in Wellington where we've got a new hokainga in place where Tawata Productions, the Conch and Takirua have come together to get a space from having a little 25 square metre room that we used to share. We've got a 450 square metre space with a rehearsal space just by sharing resources. But the long-term aim is that's to show that we can work together over an 18-month period with a long-term aim when Whitireia moves into their new precinct, amazing precinct being built with Welltech. What's happening with that building there? Can we get the wider Wellington theatre community, the other kaikatea, to come in, share resources with relationships with Wellington City Council, C&Z, Well Tech for Jaya, and the Chow Brothers, because they own it, so we have to find a way around them. Finding the new employment for the future. And then building a way so that we can actually solve for once and for all over the last 20 years the problem that Wellington's had with not good professional rehearsal studio spaces. We have to go to Tarara Tramping Club or bowling clubs to do our stuff. Yet we've got incredible schools with these students coming in and it's all dance, amazing spaces, they come out and come to such poverty. So for us, we just think, let's step it up as a community. It's already built, already infrastructure, 5 million's already put into it. It's free. Let's build it together, just pay maintenance costs, and if we work together, we can make that happen and we can finally solve our rehearsal studio issues as a full company of communities.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I've got a very strict eye on the time, so we're going to move swiftly on. Thank you for that, though. I'm going to invite Jaya to address us now. You can introduce yourself.
Yes. Hi, I'm Jaya Gibson. I'm on the steering group for the Christchurch Arts Audience Development Trust. And that's a consortium of organisations, including the Christchurch Arts Gallery, Icefest, Scape, the Christchurch Arts Festival, Canterbury Museum, Christchurch and Canterbury Tourism, Word Festival, and some independent members. And we are a consortium that works together to try and rise the tide for all ships, as it were. So through collaborating together, we meet once a month to see how we can cross-promote the arts within the region to get more ticket sales to each other's events, but also other smaller organizations as well. And it's a really great project to be a part of. I came onto the group last year. I think it started in 2013 in earnest. And it's a really invigorating group to be a part of. I found it to be very pragmatic and open, and a lot of empathy between the organizations, and a very sort of a pragmatic approach to the challenges in the arts here. And there's a lot of trust between the organizations, and it's been very, very productive. From my perspective, I've been in a lot of groups, and there's a lot of talking, but not a lot of doing. And that's been, a real breath of fresh air on this steering group, is that people are actually carrying through with those, what they commit to. And we are, the steering group runs a quarterly newsletter, sometimes more a year. It's now becoming every sort of 2 months, but it commits to a quarterly newsletter, which is using the cultural segmentation to personalize recommendations based on the cultural segmentation to people. So trying to get people to discover events and cultural and arts events that they wouldn't normally associate themselves with by putting them through the segmenting profile. Then we create newsletters, several newsletters based on those groups. It's a challenge to grow those databases, but there is genuine effort between these organizations, which quite normally would be competing, normally would be competing quite heavily, but in this regard, there is a genuine attempt to share databases, take into account all the issues with privacy and opting in and opting out, and making sure that all of those challenges are met. But the outcome is very positive, and I think everyone is in agreement that we're heading in the right direction. And the challenge ahead is how do we continue to grow this and be more inclusive with other organizations? So it's really exciting. There's some very exciting ideas and on the horizon. There's the Unloyalty app, which has been described as a great idea to cross-promote arts events with other non-arts organizations. So, you can get loyalty points from buying petrol, but it gives you, you get, the more points you reward, you get tickets to an arts show. So trying to find ways of cross-pollinating differing markets and whatnot. We're in talks with Event Finder to look at creating a clash calendar so that all the arts organizations in Christchurch who come onto this project can see where people are having an event so that they're not clashing. They don't necessarily see the details, but they can see when it's happening, and actually can work with those organizations to place their events so it benefits everyone. I think there was an interesting night last year when 3 organizations in Christchurch put their event on the same evening, but the timing was one after the other, and all three events were sold out, and they said they'd never seen it so busy. And my hope is that we can make that happen on a regular basis through this project, and that's kind of what we're hoping to do. And we've just embarked on a social media trial. We've literally just started through testing Facebook and Instagram and whatnot. So yeah, that's what I'm excited about. I also have experience in running co-working spaces, and I've worked on a few genuine collaboration projects. So I'm very passionate about seeing collaboration be better defined, and rather than this sort of vague concept of working together. What does collaboration actually mean? And for me, it's about my understanding. My approach has always been that it's based on trust. But you have a common goal, and the organization or the individual that is invited to work on a project. But it's up to them to determine their own involvement. There has to be mutual benefit. They determine what benefit there is for them, and their involvement is, based on the fact that they will be bringing benefit to the common goal of the project, and that's a principle. I believe that's a really good principle, and I work from that base.
And your big question?
Yeah. So the F word is, probably at the forefront of a lot of minds at the moment. Funding is really competitive, and you have to think about, is your organization delivering value? Is it still relevant? If you can't collaborate or consolidate your organization, is it still relevant? Should you continue doing what you're doing, and should you be taking up air, really?
So there's an existential question for you. I'm going to give you a minute or two to decide whether you should still be taking up air. Okay, that's your 2 minutes up. So, can I ask if anybody would like to share the results of their conversation with us? Should you be taking up air? Oh, okay, we've got one over here.
And my business partner's over there going, no, we're not. I was just talking about the way that there were lots of responses, so I'm going to be really quick.
Yeah.
I think one of the ones that we have changed in our organisation is we don't talk about funding anymore. We talk about investment, because I see that what we provide, what an investor in a traditional sense would provide, is they would get a financial return on their investment. We see that we're providing a cultural and social return on the investment that we receive from government or from patrons or from anywhere else. And so we operate on that basis, that actually what we're returning does have value and does have, and if we're not returning that, then it is time to kind of start going, what actually is being returned. Because I think you're right, if you're just treating water and surviving financially on a basis of grants, then maybe it isn't a great idea. But there were some really good ones over here. Go.
Okay, thank you very much. It's interesting. I went to something recently that was talking, an organisation that talked about having in its annual report and its accounts having a triple bottom line.
Yeah.
So it has a financial bottom line, it has an artistic bottom line, it has a social bottom line, and that if you aren't hitting all three of those, then you're in trouble.
What are you doing that benefits an organisation that's not yours?
Yeah.
That's the real question. And I think that in our organisation, I'm going to toot my own horn a little bit here, but I reckon that we really aim for that. We really aim for a sector-wide impact and for an impact on organisations that are not us. We aim to survive and make other people thrive.
Do you want to just say what
Yeah, where are you from?
I'm from the Basement Theatre.
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much. What are you doing that's benefiting an organisation that's not yours? I think is a great question. Thank you very much. Right, so we're going to move on to Candice de Villiers. Go for it.
Am I on? Yes, I am. I am Candice, and I'm the Marketing and Comms Manager at Q Theatre up in Auckland. For those of you who don't know, it's an independent performing arts venue that's got two primary performing arts spaces and its own cafe and bar as well. And we sit nice and snugly right between Basement and Auckland Live as well. And I felt like I couldn't start this whole panel discussion myself without acknowledging that actually Q is the result of arts organisations collaborating together. Without a whole bunch of amazing independent artists and arts organisations who identified the need for the venue and spent over a decade collaborating and working together to get it built, it simply wouldn't exist. And I think for that reason, we have a giant big list of values that sit on our window down in the office at Q, and one of them is collaboration, and we carry that through everything that we do because we're not about just ourselves, because we don't exist for just ourselves. We exist for the entire arts industry. And so carrying that forward, one thing that we're doing a lot of at Q at the moment is co-presentations, and we're starting to push those a lot more, especially as we move into our next 5 years. We're turning 5 this year. And as our Chief Executive James likes to call it, he calls it putting skin in the game, because it really does. It amps up and raises the stakes of collaboration. We're no longer just a venue for hire. We are really a partner with the incumbent company in terms of what you're presenting. And it forces us in a way that, I mean, obviously we all aim to put audience at the centre of what we do, but as a venue, it really raises those stakes, and it makes sure that we don't just sign the venue contract and say, great, you're in, now it's up to you to bring that audience in, because, you know, it's really important for us that the work does well and that the organisation that's bringing the work in succeeds. So really, it's putting audience at the heart of what we do, and I kind of am going to talk a little bit as well about what Jaya talked about, the Auckland Audience Development Pilot, AADP, I think it's called, which has been going on for a few years now and launched publicly last year. So it's similar to what's happening in Christchurch, and it's run through Creative New Zealand, and it's kind of been led very well by Morris Hargreaves McIntyre and Andrew and Ginny here. And I think for me, what works so well about the whole project is that it's not just about, there are 15 arts organisations that are part of it in Auckland, Q, as well as a number of festivals and music and dance and theatre organisations. And I think what's working really, really well with the pilot up to this point is that it's not just about cross-promotion. It's not about one arts organisation getting access to another arts organisation's data. It's about all those arts organisations inviting their database to become part of the consortium's database, and all of a sudden the ownership of that database is across all 15 organisations, and so the buy-in and the need to ensure that that database is well kept and meets the needs of all the other arts organisations involved is really, really key. So I think that's a critical part of collaboration, is making sure that there's ownership across the different organisations involved. Obviously, the sign-up process is really great because it means that we are segmenting the database nicely. So we've got culture segments for that and a whole bunch of other interesting information that we can utilise when we're going out to the different audiences and sending out campaigns. And the pilot itself is just coming to an end now. And I think in terms of the next stages for us as a consortium, it's to decide where it goes and what we do with it now and how we improve on it, how we roll out the next phase. It's very small at this stage for what we'd like it to be, but it's in terms of not just growing it, but improving the way that it runs so that we're all getting maximum return on it as well. There's been some great success in terms of the level of open rates, and I think some of the organisations have run some really great campaigns. But there's also been some learnings, and so I just want to talk about one of those in particular that I felt was the process for the initial acquisition campaign. In order for us to try and keep it streamlined and working technically meant that we used a bit of a template for inviting our own databases to join up, and I think that potentially we compromised too much there by not allowing each individual organisation to use their own tone of voice and convince their own database and their own audiences to join it. And so I think that's something that we're looking at how we could change going forward to make sure that it is successful. And that whole thing got me thinking, and my big challenge, my big question is that it made me think about the compromises that sometimes are taken when you're working in collaboration, and compromise has to happen, I think, but where's the line and where do you draw the line and how much you're willing to compromise when you work in a collaboration? Roger Tomlinson, who is an independent consultant for the Ticketing Institute, has done some work with Q earlier in the year, and he talked about this. He talked about the danger with collaboration being that organisations compromise way too much in order to make the collaboration work, that actually what ends up happening is nobody wins at all. Not even the audience, because it becomes a washy message, or the product itself doesn't deliver anything for anyone. Excuse me. So that's my question to you. My big question is, what is the core thing, the core value, ethos, goal, or attribute that you possess as an organisation or as an artist that when it comes to collaboration, you're not willing to compromise on? And I think going into collaborations with that in mind sets them up to more likely to be successful.
Oh, brilliant. You got 2 minutes. Okay. So, would anyone like to share what they wouldn't compromise on? Anyone? Oh, thank you. You should say who you are as well.
Thank you very much.
I'm Jeff Clark. I'm acting manager at the Court Theatre. But this mainly came out of the conversation we had with Charlie from Nelson Arts Festival and Jane from Auckland Zoo. It's about sponsorship and where the core values of your company or organisation or artistic endeavour clashes with prospective sponsors. There's the catch-22 of you need money to put it on, but you don't want to take the money that's being offered by an organisation. For instance, here's an example: McDonald's offering to sponsor Auckland Zoo, and that's a relationship that doesn't happen. You know, they come, they offer, they say, well, lots of money, we'll do advertising, blah, 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 but you can't do it because it clashes with the thing there. So that would be where you draw the line of where you can't compromise or you can't collaborate with organisations or things that are in direct opposition to your own values. So I think that's where having a clear idea as to what your organisation's values are is a pretty good thing.
Yes.
And being able to convey that to other organisations as well.
Wow, okay, thank you very much indeed. It's a great example. So, we are going to move on again, and we have now Penn Trevella. You can introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Penn. I'm from Regional Facilities Auckland. I've just moved into a new job, and I'm not going to explain that new job because it's very new and it'll take too long to explain. But I was previously at Auckland Live. I was the head of marketing at Auckland Live, and Auckland Live was previously known as The Edge. But 2 years ago, we made the move to Auckland Live, and while it was a symbolic, changing the name of an organisation is always very kind of symbolic and challenging. I think the whole thing was it really signified a move from what you consider venue management and a kind of a bricks and mortar approach. It was a move away from that to really saying we want to be an organisation that at its heart is responsible for making Auckland a more creative and vibrant city, and to kind of start to push aside buildings and kind of go, well, really, we could put content anywhere. You know, it's about how we connect with people. So this is pretty cool to have the opportunity to talk a little bit about some of the things that are going on. And I suppose kind of probably building on a couple of things which seem to be coming through, which is around common goals and value that partners can bring to collaboration. There was a bit of a moment of clarity at 4 a.m. this morning around synergy, and I got out of bed and I thought, well, I might as well get up and do something now rather than lying thinking about it. So I started writing some notes about synergy, and I suppose building from the notion that really at the heart of it, collaboration is all about the whole being greater than the sum of the parts. And but really, if you're going to work with partners, there needs to be a collective vision for what you're trying to achieve, and then you recognise the value that each particular partner brings to the table. So, you know, and that's probably the foundation for an effective partnership and an effective collaboration. So I wanted to just talk a little bit about what's going on in the Aotea precinct, and this is the area around Aotea Square. And it's great to have Candice here and the guys from Basement, because they're very much involved, and there's a real sense of there's a vision for what the future might be for that space, and the vision really is that people, Aucklanders and visitors to Auckland, would come to the area around Aotea Square like moths to a light, not knowing necessarily what they're going to do that night or that day, but they'll come because they just know there will be something going on, and there'll be an energy, and there'll be options. So it's quite a cool kind of shared platform to work from. And you know, things take time, and you can't do everything overnight. But there's been some pretty cool things which have emerged from that kind of collective vision. There's a lot of collective working practices are being developed, and some of it is about just looking for synergy and programming rationale, looking at things like Auckland Live puts on a international cabaret season each year. I know that I think for the upcoming cabaret season, the Basement are going to also program activity around that theme, just to try to create a broader offering for audiences. There's a kind of an understanding of an example of the understanding of the qualities and values, or the value that each organisation can bring to the table, is some work which was done around a show called Daffodils, which has been pretty successful and is now going to Edinburgh. I mean, that show originally was supported by Auckland Live through just some development time in the Herald Theatre, and then it went on to have 3 really successful seasons at Kew, and having been invited to go to Edinburgh Festival, there was then again a benefit gala show was put on Auckland Town Hall. So you've kind of got a bunch of different people, and probably Basement was probably involved as well. I mean, there's things going on. Okay, all right. Sorry, I can't tie you in. But so there's kind of, and I suppose moving forward, the vision probably is that there'll be more collaborative marketing opportunities, and probably one go-to place for audiences to be able to find out everything. So my provocation is for you to explore what do you have that is valuable to others? What do you possess within your organisation that's valuable? And that could be anything from physical space through to capability. It could be we have a particularly strong relationship with an audience group. So what do you have that is valuable to others? And so number one, and then using that, perhaps just consider what type of organisation might you collaborate with, and for what kind of shared outcome. So given what you've got and where you want to be, who might you work with?
Okay, so what have you got that's valuable to others, and who might you work with on it? Okay, you got a couple of minutes, off you go. Okay, that's the time's up. Would anybody like to share their answer to the question, what have you got that's valuable to others? I can see a familiar face waving at me from the back. Go on, Philip.
Executive of the Court Theatre. Well, one thing that we're trying to do, or would like to offer, is that one of the strengths that we've got at the Court Theatre is excellent governance and strong financial management and administrative body that's very efficient. And we've been trying to think of ways that we could use that to offer that to other artists who are maybe complementary to what we do. And we've had discussions with Tori Murray and Gary and various other people, particularly looking at Maori and Pacifica artists, and seeing if we could facilitate their work in a way that infrastructure could be used for. So it would take us into entirely different areas, but it's not to do somebody else's work, it's to facilitate somebody else's work.
Thank you very much indeed. That's a great example. So, Finally, last but not least, by any means, we have Meg Williams. So if you'd like to give us your 4 minutes of passion.
Kia ora, everyone. My name is Meg Williams, and I work at the New Zealand Festival. I'm the head of marketing and development there. I've got quite a specific example of collaboration, and it's to do with content and collaborating on content. So the New Zealand Festival takes place every 2 years. We're a biennial festival, and we had a particular challenge which was to do with how do we carry on the conversation with our audiences once the festival is finished. And I'm talking now about our kind of core e-newsletter subscribers who are very highly engaged. Once we've launched the program, we talk to them for probably about between 6 to 8 months, and I guess the key messages are around what we've got coming up at the festival and making sure that they're connected with the content that we have during the festival 3 weeks. But after that point, it becomes more challenging to think about what we're communicating to them. So this was a bit of a problem for us, and I think the danger that happens is that the festival acts as a connector. So our job is effectively to connect artists with audiences. We sit in between, so we're a presenter. We do commission stuff as well, but our key role is to act as a connector. So when we don't have a program that we're there to be talking about, the danger is that we fall back on talking about the connector, so talking about the festival, rather than talking about the art. And that in some ways, I think, is problematic because we feel like we're talking about what's going on behind the scenes, and there's some value in that. But we didn't feel that it was adding enough value to our core subscribers. So we're talking now about the kind of, we know that they're kind of arts addicts. So they tend to be in the essence of stimulation segment, and they love the festival and they're highly engaged, and they've kind of opted in to hear from us. So what we decided to do is that we were going to, as a complete experiment, launch a little digital magazine, which we called Article. And the idea is that just as we work as a festival to connect our audience with artists, that we work with a variety of different people to connect our audience with the best arts content that is out there at the moment. And we knew that it was also going to help us with a challenge, which was we were sort of feeling that in terms of the mainstream media, there was a reduction in like really great quality arts writing that really engaged people. And when we were doing some audience research, we found that a lot of our New Zealand audiences were going to the New Yorker and the Guardian and other kind of international brands to find the kind of in-depth art stories that really engaged them. So with that in mind, we thought, well, let's have a go at this ourselves. And I guess one of the crucial decisions that we made was that to do that properly, we needed someone who had just as much integrity as our artistic director. So we effectively employed a journalist to do that work for us, to be the kind of editorial direction of Article. So that person's called Guy Somerset, and he used to be the arts and books editor at the New Zealand Listener. And he was really interested he loves the arts, and he's very knowledgeable about the arts in New Zealand and internationally. And so we agreed to kind of set principles around the content, but really then we had to just kind of let go in terms of trust and say to Guy, we trust that you understand our audience and the festival and that you're not going to kind of break this, but that you can then curate for our e-newsletter subscribers a regular kind of digest of stuff. Now, we didn't have a huge bunch of money, so we're not in a position, we don't want to go into we're not going to start our own media channel and find ourselves competing with what's already a fairly tumultuous industry. So we kept it really simple, and we looked at maybe one commission of a new piece of writing every couple of weeks or every week. And this is where the collaboration really came in. So it was about thinking about what are interesting things that are happening in the arts sector in New Zealand. Not, again, just to Candice's point, not necessarily about cross-promotion, but about telling stories that are of interest to people who are interested in arts and creative content. So he writes himself, but then he also commissions a whole bunch of other people. And we don't just do written content, so sometimes it can be as easy as asking someone to compile a Spotify playlist that's in response to a particular theme. And what it's enabled us to do is quite quickly kind of really hopefully add value for our audience through this mechanism. So it sits on our website, but probably the key mechanism is a weekly email. And we decided not to be too hard on ourselves either, like if it's too busy one day, 1 week during festival time, we don't like massively sweat it and think, oh my God, we've got to get it out this week. So when the content's good and we've got the right stuff, we'll send it out. And there's 2 parts to it. So maybe one piece of commission content, but then the rest is literally, we act as a curator. So it's the best of the stuff from the web. So this week there was stuff about a whole range of different things that were found from international media, from New Zealand media, but also from the arts organisations themselves. And the key thing about collaboration on that platform is that you've got journalists. There are a lot of journalists out there, a lot of writers out there, and if we can be giving them work, then that's great. If we can be commissioning them to write pieces, that's great. But we also looked internally to our own staff and invited them to contribute to it too. So my big question is, who could you be collaborative content? Who could you be content collaborators with? And can you let go and give trust to someone else to help tell your stories?
Okay, sorry for the people who just come in. We're just wrapping up, but feel free to join in if you want. So we're asking people to spend 2 minutes asking who could you content collaborate with, and could you let go and let them do it on their own independently. So I'll give you 90 seconds to do this one. We're going to try and wrap this up as quick as you can. You know how to do it. Okay, I'm going to cut that short if I can. Sorry to stop you there. Can I ask anyone, is there anyone who'd like to just share their example of who they could content collaborate with? Do I see a wave anywhere? Yes, fantastic. Hang on 1 second, there's a microphone coming. Off we go.
Just keep going. Okay, maybe we could collaborate with you. We have contacts with our writers. So Society of Authors.
Sorry,
Society of Authors.
Oh, right, fantastic.
Right, so we have writers who'd like to be paid. So.
Thank you. Okay, so just to wrap up, because we've got a lot of people coming in, hope you enjoyed that. I think that when we talk about collaboration, often it's prefaced by talking about how challenging the economic environment is and how collaboration might be the solution to that. I hate that, because that suggests that we're being pushed together out of necessity. I'd much prefer these examples where we're maybe choosing collaboration as a positive strategy rather than one that's just defensive. We've been asked some great questions. How could you collaborate to solve problems? We had a great example of how you could leverage collective power to improve facilities. We got asked, are you still relevant? And should you still be taking up air? I thought the question in response, what are you doing that's benefiting an organisation that's not yours, is a great question, because that's what makes you relevant. We were asked, what wouldn't you compromise on? And I think we had a great example of we wouldn't compromise our ethics and values for dollars. We got asked, what have you got that's valuable to others? And we had all kinds of examples there, but the best one, I think, was the idea of offering to lend our strengths in admin, finance, governance to those who have valuable work but maybe lack that. So that's a great example. And finally, who could you content collaborate with, and could you let go? And the Society of Authors are willing to take up the challenge. I think finally I would just say that it's this kind of awareness, isn't it, that we are part of a delicate ecosystem, and that all of us can benefit from that ecosystem, but that all of us are, for the health of that ecosystem, but all of us are also responsible for the health of that ecosystem. So thank you to all the panellists, and thank you for all your ideas as well. I think we should give them a clap.